Tonight, residents flee as Boko Haram terrorists attack Geidam in Yobe State. Nigeria Air Force dispatches fighter jets to dislodge the insurgents. 3 of the Greenfield University students abducted by bandits 3 days ago found dead in a village near the institution in Kaduna State. Governor Uzodinma says over 40 persons arrested following the jailbreak in Imo State challenges security agencies to make public names of politicians sponsoring banditry. Rainstorm wreaks havoc in Calabar. Victims appeal for urgent assistance from government. And India's medical system under pressure as the country reports the world's highest daily infections of COVID-19 for a second day. Plus business, sports, news from Abuja, and later international news from our London studio.
On business news tonight, President Buhari overrules DPR on revocation of 4 OML assets, restores ownership to NNPC and Adex Petroleum.
On sports news tonight, former Manchester United forward and Wales manager Ryan Giggs charged with assault by prosecutors.
And from the nation's capital, the president gives assurance of Nigeria's readiness for climate action as he joins other world leaders at a virtual summit to reaffirm the Paris Agreement.
It has now become a pattern. Another day, another kind of attack, and the latest is currently ongoing, this time in Geidam, Yobe State, where insurgents have sent residents fleeing their homes. While that is happening, we have a report that 3 of the Greenfield University students abducted by bandits have been found dead. Meanwhile, the governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, is placing the blame regarding the worsening security situation on the doorsteps of politicians. Geidam, a community in the northeastern state of Yobe, has not recorded any terrorist attack in recent times. But today, that story has changed after the dreaded Boko Haram terrorists invaded the community, attacking residents. But it was not a smooth sail for them after all, as the military has been engaging them in a shootout with support from the Air Force to flush out the invaders. There are no sufficient information on the casualty figures as we speak, but residents told Channels Television that there is tension in the town. The last time Geidam came under attack was February 9th, barely 24 hours after the new Chief of Army Staff, Ibrahim Atahiru, visited troops in the battlefield shortly after his appointment. But there is a twist to today's attack in Geidam. Residents told Channels Television that a letter had earlier been circulated by the terrorists, luring the residents to support their cause to establish a Muslim caliphate or get killed. Channels Television's correspondent got a copy of the one-page letter, summarized saying, "Our major aim to uplift the word of Allah, protect the religion of Islam and the wealth of the followers. Our target, those who do not believe in our ideology, Christians and even Muslims who do not believe in our teachings. Any Muslim who is not supporting the empire of Islam is our target. Anyone who comes to us for forgiveness and stops fighting us will be exempted from attacks." Let's get more perspective on the letter distributed by the Boko Haram terrorists in Geidam. We're now being joined on the news at 10 by the Managing Director, Beacon Consulting, and a security risk intelligence expert, Mr. Kabiru Adamu. Thank you for joining us on the news at 10 tonight.
Thank you, Millicent. Good evening.
All right, first, as an intelligence expert, what is it, do you know, have you heard so far of the situation in Geidam, Yobe State, as at now?
Well, nothing more than what you have indicated in the report, suggesting that there was an attack this evening, that the troop deployment in Geidam attempted to repel the attack and that they were supported by the Nigerian Air Forces. We also picked up the letter that was circulated in the town earlier on. We also picked up the fact that residents of the town were apprehensive, and so it appears there were prior indications of an impending attack, and unfortunately the attack did occur, despite the fact that there were indications suggesting that an attack could occur.
And with all of this happening, I mean, what should the government or the military be doing right now? And this is to reassure and strengthen the confidence of residents, seeing all that we're hearing at the moment.
The truth of it is the government, the security forces would need to reestablish order. And how do they reestablish order? By preventing this type of attacks. Now, we know that for the past 11 years, there has been an Operation Lafia Doli, and the mandate of Operation Lafia Doli is to contain the terrorism. Unfortunately, the more this type of incidences occur, the more it shows the residents that, unfortunately, the security agencies are unable to protect them. And so, and I hate to say this, sometimes residents would have to choose between either supporting or keeping quiet with regards to the activities of this terrorist when they know, for instance, that they can't be protected, like in the case of Geidam. So, I mean, the simple answer is improved protection, improved security, target the strongholds, the basis of this, groups. In this instance, the letter indicated that the attack was carried out by the Islamic State in West Africa province, and there is enough intelligence indicating where this group is located. So take the attack to them, remove their bases, arrest their leaders, present them for prosecution. Frankly, nothing more than this.
It's also interesting to see that, I mean, Yobe is not really a major battlefield like Borno, for example. Does this suggest that the terrorists are strengthening their network of sorts?
Well, we have to remember that one of the spiritual headquarters of especially the other group, which is Jamaat al-Ahlis Sunnah al-Dawat wal-Jihad, is in Yobe. So the entire northeast, especially the three states of Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe have traditionally been hotspots for this type of attacks. Of course, in the last few years, especially 5 years, we've seen a reduction of attacks in Yobe and Adamawa, and most of the attacks have concentrated in Borno. From time to time, we see incursions into Yobe, just like it happened today. Of course, in your report earlier on, indicated there was an attack in Geidam specifically in February, but then other parts of Yobe, including Gujiba and several others, especially the border area between Borno and Yobe, have received this type of attacks. What we are seeing is more or less a dislocation of especially these two major terrorist groups, the Islamic State in West Africa province and the Jamaat al-Ahli Sunnah al-Dawat wal-Jihad. And then some of their cells are now able to carry these types of attacks, unfortunately.
All right, we appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Kabiru Adamo, Security Risk Intelligence Expert. Thank you for joining us on the News at 10 tonight.
Thank you for having me, and stay safe.
You as well. And now from Yobe to Kaduna State, where 3 of the students abducted from the Greenfield University Tuesday night have been found dead. The whereabouts of the remaining 20 is still unknown, as their abductors are yet to make contact with their parents or state authorities. But the Kaduna State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Mr. Samuel Arwan, says the bodies of the 3 students were found in Kawan Bature village, a location close to the university, and have been evacuated to a mortuary. Meanwhile, Governor Nasser El-Rufai has condemned the killing, describing it as sheer wickedness, inhumanity, and an outright desecration of human lives by vile entities. He went on to say that the armed bandits represent the worst of humankind and must be fought at all costs for the violent wickedness they represent. Governor El-Rufai adds that evil will not triumph over God-given humanity. And moving down south, Imo State Governor Hope Uzodimma is accusing politicians of being responsible for the spate of banditry across the country, and he says it is a plot to destabilize the polity. Governor Uzodimma made this comment after meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari at the State House today. He also gave the APC government a pass mark in its almost 6 years of leadership.
Well, as at the last count, I think we arrested over 40 to 50 people who also made useful statements and who confessed to the crime. I continue to tell you that this issue of banditry is something that we must all rise up as a people to condemn and then support security agencies to be able to provide an enabling environment for people to go about their businesses without fear of any molestation. The job of security of a country cannot be left alone to security agencies. The job requires the citizenry to at least support security agencies through intelligence gathering. Listen, let me tell you something. This country is blessed by God. From 2015 today, I thought what the problem would be. People saying that no job creation. People are not feeding. Salaries are not paid. Infrastructure are going down. Social interventions are not approved by government. These things are there available. A pass mark for the government of President Muhammad Buhari. Now, people are no longer talking about that. Rather, what they are doing is to sponsor crisis to the extent that those funding this banditry are politicians, which I challenge and call on security agencies to make their names available to the press. Because what they want to do is to distract a government that is focused. If this government is not doing well, I will be one of those that will first declare the government as not doing well. But a situation where you will leave the former way, ethical way of doing politics, and you are now sponsoring banditry to bring down a government, for Christ's sake, we should rise up and condemn it, all of us.
For Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State, equipping the military is one of the easiest ways the Nigerian government and the armed forces can win the fight against insurgents and bandits terrorizing the country. The governor shared this opinion when the Chief of Defence Staff, General Lucky Irabo, and other senior military officers paid him a visit today in Port Harcourt. He insists that no right-thinking person will oppose the move to equip the military, as according to him, the security situation has gotten worse.
It's the first visit of the Chief of Defence Staff, General Lucky Irabo, to Rivers State since his appointment early this year. He's in Government House, Port Harcourt, with senior military officers to inform Governor Nyesom Wike of his presence in the state ahead of the commissioning of some officers and ratings into the Nigerian Navy, and have a first-hand assessment of military operations in Rivers State. He, however, seizes the opportunity to address issues that are critical to the development of the Niger Delta, while appreciating Governor Nyesom Wike's support to the military in Rivers State.
I thought it's also necessary to put on record that it's essential for us to live in peace and harmony in order to allow socio-economic activities to thrive. It is only with that kind of ambience created that we will improve on the development strive of not just the state, but of course the federal government.
For Governor Nyesom Wike, the emergence of General Lucky Irabo as the Chief of Defence Staff should bring about a new narrative in the Nigerian military, as he calls for proper equipping of the officers and men.
Even though you came at a time, if I will quote, the Minister of Defense said Nigeria is bleeding. I didn't say so. It was the Minister of Defense that said so. I'm only quoting him. In a sense, you have been brought in to see how you can solve the security problems in this country. No right-thinking person will not support the equipping of the army. In fact, the military, not just army, the military, everybody. Where we are today, we don't need to look back to say, look, take whatever money that's available and equip the military.
He also commends the style of military operations in Rivers State.
In our own local place here, I promised them to give them 5 gunboats. Already, we believe the manufacturers have told us that in the next 2-3 weeks, The one they have finished is the Falcon boat for the police. So the one they are doing now is for the Navy and the Army. So they are sure that we'll give you all the necessary support.
Beyond the rhetorics, Nigerians are desperately wishing to see an end to insecurity, a promise the Chief of Defense says he holds at heart.
In part two, after the break, we have more on security, plus rainstorm wreaks havoc in Calabar. Victims appeal for urgent assistance from government. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Residents flee as Boko Haram terrorists attack Geidam in Yobe State. Nigeria Air Force dispatches fighter jets to dislodge the insurgents. 3 of the Greenfield University students abducted by bandits 3 days ago found dead in a village near the institution in Kaduna State. Governor Uzodinma says about 40 persons arrested following the jailbreak in Imo State challenges security agencies to make public names of politicians sponsoring banditry. Rainstorm wreaks havoc in Calabar. Victims appeal for urgent assistance from government. And India's medical system under pressure as the country reports the world's highest daily infections of COVID-19 for a second day. The presidency may have bowed to public pressure by appointing new service chiefs, but Governor Kayode Fayemi believes that alone it is not enough to win the fight against insurgency and other security challenges plaguing the country. He is advocating both security and economic approaches to end the menace. The Ekiti State Governor made the comments at an event in Kaduna today.
Well, there's no one-size-fits-all solution to the challenges that we're faced. And no one ever said that the change of service chiefs would automatically resolve all security challenges, because we need to look at the sociological underpinnings of these challenges themselves. And recently I've mentioned issues like inequality, issues of unemployment that are contributing to this. But we must also be tough on these crimes. We have not been tough enough on the crimes. We have not brought people responsible for this criminality to book as we ought to. And this brigandage will in the first instance stop when impunity stops. When that happens, then we can take on the broader socioeconomic challenges that are responsible for these crimes. It's a two-pronged process. Let us halt these problems first by taking on these enemies of progress, these enemies of our country who want to set us against one another, and then address questions of inequality, questions of unemployment, questions of fear and hatred being spread under the guise of religion.
Meanwhile, the presidency's support for the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Mr. Issa Pantami, over his alleged comments on the Boko Haram sect may not lay the matter to rest after all. Now, the main opposition, People's Democratic Party, PDP, is taking a swipe at the presidency, saying Nigerians are traumatized that the presidency could mount what it calls a hopeless defense and justification for the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, who had already confessed to supporting terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda as well as the Taliban. The PDP says our party holds that this has further exposed why the Buhari presidency has failed to decisively confront terrorism, as well as why terrorists, bandits, kidnappers and insurgents are emboldened to ravage our nation and massacre our compatriots. The party adds that it is pertinent to point out that Mr. Pantami had initially denied his support to terrorist groups and only admitted after he was overwhelmed by evidence, thus rubbishing the claims by the Buhari presidency that the minister had turned a new leaf 20 years ago. But the presidency has also been explaining the reasons for its stance in support of the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy over the calls for his resignation. The president's spokesperson, Mr. Garba Shehu, told Channels Television that the Buhari administration believes that Minister Pantami has indeed changed. Mr. Shehu was a guest on our political program, Politics Today.
The administration stands behind him for fair hearing, stands behind the Nigerians in getting a better deal from ICT companies and against all forms of extortion or exploitation. So it's a two-legged thing, and that this is where we are. There are issues that have been raised, serious allegations that some operators in the ICT sector had launched a smear campaign against the minister. This should be of interest to the police and to the courts, as that statement said. But as far as the citizen Pantami is concerned, he is not guilty until charged or investigation proves otherwise. The essence of that statement is to indicate clearly that this is a government that is at all times prepared to give a fair treatment to all citizens, in this case a minister, and also consumers of the telecoms products that are on sale in the country. And to have somebody come forward to say he realized he has made a mistake, he has apologized. So what are we talking about? We say we are religious people. Go and check the Quran, go and check the Bible. All of the scriptures tell you that if you're a bad man today, you are welcome to become a good person. If you become a good person, should you be rejected? I think this is the thinking of some of us.
And to some other stories, some residents in Calabar, the capital of Cross River State, are lamenting over the disaster caused by a rainstorm in parts of the state. Amongst facilities damaged is the postnatal ward at the General Hospital in Calabar. The state government says it is working to bring succor to the people.
The streets of Calabar, the Cross River State capital, littered with the aftermath of nature's wrath after heavy winds and rains wreaked havoc in the metropolis. Falling trees, blown out roofs, damaged vehicles show the extent of destruction. This small business owner laments over his loss.
All my properties are submerged. I got a call around 7 o'clock that my roof was blown off. I got home to see it, confirm it myself. All my certificates, from my first school leaving to my MED, all inside water.
A drive through the popular Mary Slessor Avenue shows that the General Hospital is not spared. A section of the health facility is also affected, exposing nursing mothers and their infants in the postnatal ward.
The rain come with wind, we soak, and the up was leaking. It leaked up the water from window. We soak here all, babies, mothers, some women that are bringing the theater. They soak. One was struggling to stand up, see bleeding.
The thing was drilling here. I used this bucket. To cover. I'm the father that changed this thing because the baby, he struggled to go out to urinate. I went out before I come. The thing was, my baby was inside the cot. My baby was right inside the cot, soaked.
The state government empathizes with the patients and promises to take necessary actions to make things better.
What was most disturbing was the fact that mothers that had just given birth to their babies, who should be in a state of joy, were actually being affected. What was most disturbing is that our newborn babies that should be in the best of environment were already being disturbed by the storm and the rain that happened here today. And so we must find innovative solutions to what has happened tonight. And one of those solutions would be to increase the number of windows so that we can increase ventilation, but improve on the type of window.
Although this was a natural disaster, residents and patients are calling for greater action from government to minimize the impact of the rainstorm in the future as they continue to count their losses.
When the news at 10 returns, we have more stories from our Abuja studios. Plus, President Buhari overrules DPR on revocation of 4 OML assets, restores ownership to NNPC and Adex Petroleum. That's on Business News. Do join us again. Welcome back to health. Nigeria would require 352 billion naira to combat malaria this year alone. This is according to the Minister of Health, Dr. Sage Hanire, who is appealing for support from the organized private sector and government as the COVID-19 pandemic has seriously impacted government revenue negatively. The minister was speaking in Abuja ahead of the World Malaria Day on Sunday.
The World Malaria Day commemoration provides us with the opportunity to share the progress we have made, share best practices, create awareness on the scourge of malaria. Particularly this year, as Nigeria and other countries battle the COVID-19 pandemic. The theme of this year's commemoration, Zero Malaria, Draw the Line Against Malaria, and the slogan, Stand Up, Take Action, which is to empower communities in various countries to take ownership of preventing malaria and providing proper care and treatment to those in need are germane. The implementation of the new strategic plan will cost 1.89 trillion naira. About 352 billion is required for the year 2021 program implementation. Considering the prevailing economic circumstances, the government may not have the adequate amount. So I use this opportunity to solicit support from corporate organizations, the private sector, and also patriotic individuals.
And while Nigeria continues to source for funds to combat malaria, the Oxford Institute has produced a vaccine that is 77% effective against the infection. According to the London Times, this is the result of a new study by the Oxford Institute, which conducted clinical trials of 450 children and is set to embark on a wider scale of human trials to test for rarer side effects.
One of the exciting things about this result today is that for the first time, a vaccine has reached the efficacy level that WHO have been looking for. They want a malaria vaccine with 75% or more efficacy by 2030. We think we can do that. So 77% is the highest yet, and could really add to the existing tools that we use to control malaria, meaning bed nets, insecticide spraying, and giving children drugs to kill the malaria parasite during the peak of the transmission season. The problem is that we're using all those tools today and have been for some years. And since about 2015, there has been no reduction in the overall mortality from malaria in Africa each year. So we're a little bit stuck. Therefore, we need some new tools, and a malaria vaccine would be a fantastic one to have.
A new game changer there. Well, let's hand you over to Terry Kumi from Abuja Studios. He has some more stories. Terry?
Hello, Millicent. The president has joined 40 other world leaders at a virtual leaders summit on climate change, where he gave the assurance of Nigeria's readiness to galvanize relevant stakeholders for climate action and support for regional, continental, and global multilateral processes for attainment of the objectives of the Paris Agreement. President Buhari says the fight to redress the impact is the responsibility of all countries and stakeholders, as he congratulates President Joe Biden of the United States for renewed interest in the Paris Agreement. The issue of climate change, according to President Buhari, has taken the front burner globally as its effect can be seen and felt all around us, ranging from increased atmospheric temperature to irregular rainfall patterns, as well as sea level rise owing to the melting of glacial ice. He adds that the summit would prove instrumental in galvanizing higher-level political support for the implementation of the Paris Agreement and its Katowice rule book, as well as inviting more countries and stakeholders to take more climate-oriented responsibilities. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has directed his Chief of Staff, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, the Minister of Labour and Employment, Senator Chris Ngige, and other relevant stakeholders to address the problem with the Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria to bring an end to the ongoing strike. Briefing State House correspondent after a meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari at the State House, Senator Ngige said he met with the president to intimate him on the industrial actions by various unions in the country. According to him, he briefed the president about ongoing efforts by the ministry and resolutions reached, including a review of hazard allowance. Cancer does not have to be a death sentence. That's according to the founder of the Marcel Ruth Cancer Center and Specialist Hospital, Dr. Modukbe Elebute Odunsi. She was speaking at the commissioning of the hospital, which is described as one of its kind globally.
With its ensemble of world-class equipment provided by GE Healthcare, Marcel Ruth Cancer Center and Specialist Hospital is joining the fight against cancer in Nigeria. Situated in Victoria Island, Lagos, the founder affirms her commitment to bringing world-class care at an affordable price.
I'll keep going around and around.
After a few months of operation, the facility is opening for public use. It's the commissioning that's bringing here the Lagos State Governor, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the U.S. Consul General to Nigeria, among other dignitaries.
And here we are with a world-class center, the first one-stop shop for the comprehensive treatment of cancer. And I would like to emphasize, although that word is there, I think we are dealing with a lot of other specialist conditions. We have a general practice, we have screening, we have dermatology. So, you know, it's not just the big C word.
Among the founder's list of expectations with this hospital is reversing brain drain, discouraging medical tourism out of Nigeria, as well as provision of world-class healthcare delivery.
If you ask the majority of people when they do leave the country to go and access healthcare abroad, 70–80% of the time, they're being looked after by Nigerian doctors.
We are seeing the fruits of a labor of hope, patriotism, innovation come to life here today. This center fills a gap that ensures cancer patients in Nigeria get the highest quality care possible.
We must have lost Twitter, but we have not lost MRCC. This is our own Twitter that has come home. This is a belief for our citizens, for us to say that when we put our mind to things, we can make it happen.
And now to the commissioning.
Thank you very much.
The hospital's major partner, GE Healthcare, which boasts itself as a leading global medical technology and digital solutions innovator, is confident that patients are in for a world-class experience.
All of that technology collectively is really important in the diagnostics and also post, say, radiotherapy intervention in seeing how the patient is improving and getting better over a period of time.
The hospital is named after the founder's mother-in-law who died of cancer.
Well, that's all from Abuja. Back to Lagos for business news with Teniola Shobowale.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Terry. Welcome to Business News. The dust seems to have settled over the revocation of 4 oil mining licenses by the Department of Petroleum Resources, which is operated by Adax Petroleum. President Muhammadu Buhari has overruled the decision of the DPR to hand over the leases on OMLs 123, 124, 126 and 137 to the new operators, Castex Lavage Consortium. According to a statement from the presidency, the president approved the restoration of the licenses to the Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation, which is in a production sharing contract with Adax Petroleum, while directing the DPR to retract the letter of revocation of the leases. The statement adds that the NNPC is to utilize contractual provisions to resolve issues in line with the exchange provisions of the production sharing contract arrangement with Adax Petroleum. The DPR had revoked the leases last month over non-development of the assets for several years. Let's check in on the stock markets now. The local equities market maintains a week-long bullish run as investors' gains inched up 258 billion naira week on week to close positive. John Mekwa tells us more.
Hello and welcome to the stock market report, where certainly it's a bullish week as trading ended today with all sectors that we tried gaining except for oil and gas counter, which ended flat. It's a full bull run for the 5 trading sessions of the week. And for the second time this week, Access Bank led the top trades with 46.78 million of its shares traded today. GT Bank is also on that list, and so is Lincolnshire. Now, incidentally, Lincolnshire is also on the top losers list, indicating that there was a lot of profit taking as it lost 4.76% to close out 80 kobo. Union Daikon Cornerstone also lost 9.59% and 3.70% respectively. Top gainers were Triple G, Sovereign Trust Insurance, and Stanbic. Now, all these activities edged the all-share index higher by 0.43% at 39,301.82, and the market cap pulling a better run than yesterday. That's the stock market report. I'm John Mekwa.
And now the Abdul Samad Rabiu Africa Initiative has donated a cash grant of 1 billion naira to the University of Ibadan under its ASR Africa Tertiary Education Grant Scheme in line with its project initiation consultations phase. According to the chairman of the foundation, represented by Dr. Aliyu Idihong, the initiative is focused on equipping facilities, researchers, healthcare practitioners, and community-level service providers.
As a first tranche of this endowment, $50 million have been set aside specifically for Nigeria's intervention, and another $50 million is set aside for the rest of Africa. These interventions will be in the area of education, health, and social development. And part of this have already been committed. 6 billion naira has been allocated to 6 premier universities, 1 per geopolitical zone in the country, that will benefit toward augmenting their resources and intervening in their area of need to improve the quality of services they render in their institutions.
And that's business news tonight. It's over to Millicent for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Taniola. Still ahead on the news at 10, India's medical system under pressure as the country reports the world's highest daily infections of COVID-19 for a second day. This other international news from our London studio. Please stay with us. India is reporting record numbers of coronavirus cases and deaths as a brutal second wave of COVID-19 overwhelms the healthcare system. Saman Pusey has more on this and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. India has reported the world's highest daily tally of COVID-19 infections for a second day, surpassing 330,000 new cases as it struggles with a health system overwhelmed by patients. The Health Ministry reported deaths in the past 24 hours also jumped to a record 2,263, while officials across northern and western India, including the capital New Delhi, warned most hospitals were full and running out of oxygen. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, whose government has been criticised for relaxing virus curbs too soon, has met chief ministers of the worst affected states to discuss the crisis. The US military is sending airborne assistance to aid Indonesia's search for a missing submarine with 53 people on board. Indonesian authorities estimate they have just hours left to find the Navy submarine before the oxygen on board runs out. The KRI Nanggala 402 disappeared on Wednesday during exercises off the coast of Bali, sparking a frantic search to locate the stricken vessel. At least 6 warships, a helicopter and 400 people have since been involved in the search. Singapore and Malaysia have dispatched ships to the area, and Australia, France and Germany have also offered assistance. Scores of people have been injured in clashes in East Jerusalem between far-right Jewish activists, Palestinians and Israeli police. The violence erupted as police tried to keep Palestinians and ultra-nationalist Jewish protesters apart. It follows nights of confrontations in the Israeli-occupied sector amid rising nationalist and religious tensions. The Palestinian Red Crescent said at least 100 Palestinians were injured, while police said 20 officers were hurt. More than 50 people were arrested. Tensions in East Jerusalem have escalated since the start of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. Russia's defense ministry has announced it has begun returning troops from Crimea to their permanent bases after they took part in military exercises. The ministry released a video showing servicemen loading military vehicles on flat platforms and boarding a cargo plane. Russia announced on Thursday it was ordering troops back to base from the area near the border with Ukraine, apparently calling an end to a build-up of tens of thousands of soldiers that had alarmed many Western countries. Thousands of people have gathered at the main square in Chad's capital, N'Djamena, to pay their respects to the late President Idriss Déby. Mourners included French President Emmanuel Macron and a host of African presidents and prime ministers. Mr. Déby's son, Mahamat Idriss Déby, joined the world leaders in the front row as the coffin draped in the national flag of Chad arrived for the ceremony. His death was announced a day after election officials said he had won a 6th term in office. Some incredible scenes next of the Northern Lights from a city called Fairbanks in Alaska. It's not even the season to view the natural phenomenon, but the aurora borealis has been seen in all its spectacular glory, lighting up the night sky. The amazing scenes happen due to solar wind, when electrically charged particles spew outward from the sun. And finally, a dog in Utah has become an overnight track sensation after she joined this varsity race relay. Named Holly, she passes each of the contestants at the final stage of the 4x200 relay before finally chasing Gracie Laney on the final stretch. She nearly trips Laney at the finish line, but that doesn't detract from the achievement, with Holly the dog clocking 10.5 seconds for the final 100 metres. That's just 1 second behind Usain Bolt's record. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Time now for some sports news. Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga has promised to ensure a safe Tokyo Olympics this summer after announcing a new state of emergency for Tokyo, Osaka and 2 other prefectures. In the 3rd round of the state of emergency, the government will require restaurants, bars and karaoke parlors serving alcohol to close and big sporting events to be held without spectators from April the 25th to May the 11th. Prime Minister Suga insists that Japan will take measures to ensure it could safely hold the Olympics this summer. UEFA has announced that Seville has replaced Bilbao as a host city for the European Championships, with St. Petersburg taking the 3 group stage games from Dublin. Wembley Stadium in London has gained the Irish capital's last 16 match, adding to its list of fixtures, which include the semi-finals and final. UEFA says it was forced into the changes after Bilbao and Dublin could not guarantee the presence of fans at matches. Munich has also been confirmed as a venue. And British prosecutors have charged Wales coach Ryan Giggs with assaulting 2 women in November last year. A Crown Prosecution Service spokesman says the former Manchester United forward will appear at Manchester and Salford Magistrates Court on April the 28th. That's a wrap on sports news. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Ayotunde. And the main news again. Residents of Geidam in Yobe State fled their homes today as Boko Haram terrorists attacked their community. The Nigerian Army and the Air Force have been battling to dislodge the insurgents, and some residents told our correspondent a while ago that the gunshots have stopped, but they cannot guarantee that the insurgents have left their community. Also today, 3 of the Greenfield University students abducted by bandits Tuesday night have been found dead in a village near their school in Kaduna State. And India's medical system under pressure as the country today reported the world's highest daily infections of COVID-19 for a second day. Stay with Channels Television, your home for the news. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Stay safe.